obviously your injury is visible, but when we met, that just didn't register with me at all. You don't present as disabled or injured in that way. You don't project that in any way. It's not part of your presentation. It's not part of your presence or your countenance. You don't present yourself as macho, Rambo in any way at all. Quite the contrary, as a
Well, that's
matter of
because I'm
fact.
not. I
Yeah.
mean, I'll clarify again. I am not in any way macho. I am still absolutely a nerd. That's the one exception to the rule is the story that we're talking about today. Um, but to be fair, I think in our specific instance, the reason why you didn't notice the injury is because I was actually introducing you to my pal that's with me here now. I don't know if you guys can catch him on camera.
I see Punch there.
Yeah, Punch is hanging out with us. He's my lovely service dog. I named him Punch because he took over the job of my flying left fist, and I didn't want to name him Fist. So he hangs out with me, and I think that's the reason why you didn't notice. So I think there's a distinction to make there.
Well, I'm definitely a dog lover, and I fell for Punch right away.
He's one of the best.
He's a good pup. He's pretty smitten with you, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, that feeling is mutual. We've been hanging out for 6 years now. He's my best friend.
So you get out of the military, and you've done a lot of things since then. You've raised millions of dollars for hospitals, rehab programs, and charities such as the Birthright Foundation. You've worked with amputee organizations and schools, colleges, universities. When you've gone out and spoken, right now, there's a lot of controversy in America, and there's been a lot of attention to anti-Semitic sort of rhetoric and people that are very vocal about this at this point. What's been your experience when you've gone out to speak?
I mean, it obviously depends on the venue, but I think maybe the most prudent thing to focus on to answer your question is when I speak on college campuses, because that is where it is the most divisive and controversial. Um, and yeah, I mean, I would say that it doesn't just have to do with Israel. Everything is divisive today on campus, but because that is where my story took place, and that is the topic of conversation, even without hearing what I have to say, there is usually a group of students who show up to protest and name call and use some pretty horrible terminology in my direction. And that's before they even have to hear what I have to say. Um, I don't think it's an Israel problem. I think it's a broader cultural problem. Um, I didn't go to college, and I'm kind of glad, I think at this point, that I missed that. Um, it's a scary place to be these days. That's where the divisiveness, I think, starts, and it's spreading into the marketplace of ideas thereafter.
So, what do you hear from these protesters? What do they say to you before they ever even know what your message is, what you're there to talk about? I mean, they know what you're there to talk about, but they don't know what your message is and what your talking points are and what you want them to consider.
Right. I'm coming there to inspire and shed some positive light on a difficult experience that I faced on the other side of the world. Um, a lot of what I get comes with the title of you're a terrorist, you're an apartheid enforcer, you're a baby killer. Um, Things that nobody wants to hear. Things that I've been hearing for many years now, to the point where I've kind of been desensitized from it. Um, and my goal when that happens is to start a conversation. I want those people there, and I want to change their mind, as crazy as that sounds, because I feel like once somebody throws something that gruesome at you, you probably aren't going to be able to change their mind. But I've been surprised that I've been able to at least have conversations with people, and hear their perspective and share mine, and leave shaking hands, even if we don't agree on the particular points. I think without dialogue, there's no way to get anything done. And again, that's not an Israel issue. That's something that we're dealing with in politics in the United States today. People just aren't willing to talk to each other anymore.
And how do you start that conversation? When you go to speak and somebody's there hurling these labels at you and calling you baby killer and all, what is your rejoinder? How do you initiate that conversation? I want people to hear that.
Well, for starters, I actually listen. Most people today don't listen to what somebody who disagrees with them has to say. So I actually listen. And I think people notice that. And I'm honest with them. I tell them that I want to have this conversation. I'm willing to hear them out. And what I tend to do is I'll say, hey, you know what? Listen to my remarks. Listen to what I came here to talk about. Let me get through my presentation. Let me try to inspire people in the way that I know how to do. And then afterwards, I promise your questions will be the first one that I answer in the Q&A. And sometimes they're willing to give me that benefit of the doubt. And other times their minds are so made up before they get there that I can't even get that out of them. But that's also okay. Because something else that I noticed is that you're not always, or not only having this discussion with the person who disagrees with you entirely, it's also about all the other people who are listening. And when they see that you're willing to talk and someone else isn't, you look good and they don't. You're winning that argument just by trying to, when others aren't.
When those people that you say, look, listen to what I have to say, what I've come here to try and inspire people about, which is not necessarily political.
Not at all. Personal.
It's very personal and very much challenging people in their own journey, independent of their politics. When they hear you talk about those things, you get to the end of that speech and you say, I'll let you have the first question. What happens?
It varies tremendously from event to event. I've had events where they just didn't even let me speak and it just ended there. And I've had events where the Q&A ended after 40 minutes of a real dialogue with everyone involved, people with opposing ideas. And even though the event is over and they need the space back, we end up talking for another 2 hours in a different corner. And I love when that happens, and I'm willing to keep trying to make that happen. Even though there are many misfires and just being shouted down. I mean, I'm a sensitive guy. Nobody likes being called horrible names, regardless of the circumstances, but you have to try.
Do they respond to your message despite the fact that they don't like where it happened, what you were doing, and the labels that they've put on you? Do they at least respond to the personal message?
I mean, it's hard to know. It's hard to know, Dr. Phil. I would like to think that occasionally. Again, how many people are actually listening to ideas that they oppose today? Not about Israel, but about anything political, about anything that the algorithm keeps dividing us further on. I can tell you that I think it's been getting worse and worse over the last decade, and I don't see how it gets better. I'm clearly a very good motivational speaker. I don't know if you can pick up on it from my morbid message over there, but I think it's getting worse, and I don't know how we make it better. Is what I'm trying to say.
Those people that don't have that attitude, that don't have that prejudgment and come in there with a confirmation bias, how do they respond to your message?
I mean, I've had people who it was pointed out to me are there to protest who ended up thanking me by the time I was walking out. And I wish I can say that happens often. It doesn't. But all I can do is try.